Hey guys, we're so happy that you're back for part three of Overton Nation. And I'm sure you can see our spokesperson and our historian for the Overton family, Ms. Chantel Overton, sitting to, I don't know if it's your right or your left, depending on where you're sitting with your computers. But listen, as we have a litany of information. I know you've seen advertising and information out there about the banker. And we know a lot of us talk about Black Wall Street, and there are just so many things that happen and take place. Many of you Southerners are well familiar with plantations and the whole nine, and you watch movies and you watch videos. And I know some of you a few years ago was watching Django, the whole nine. Now, why am I sharing all of that? I'm sharing all of that simply because very seldomly do we get to speak with descendants of many of our ancestors, and all we can do is talk about them and discuss things that we hear from others, rather than being actually able to talk with the descendants. So, for those of you that have been with us through part one and part two, then you've already met the incomparable Chantel Overton. For our new guest joining us tonight, then we're introducing you for the first time to Ms. Chantel Overton. And we'll be talking about, again, as I said, a litany of information there. Now, for those of you that are new, be aware that we offer you the opportunity to do FaceTime with our special guest. And Ms. Overton and I have been on so often doing this until now, I consider her a co host. She is no longer a guest, she's a co host when we are doing Overton Nation. And for those that come on FaceTime, we always ask that you silence your cameras until you are preparing to speak. That way, we don't have the background noise and the interruptions. Now, we know that the interruptions are unintended, but if you're not ready to speak, please silence your cameras. Just hit that little speaker button there and silence your camera. So again, may I repeat myself? Good evening. Welcome to the Nobody Asked to Me Guy show.
Hello,
We're
Sean.
happy that you're here, and it's great to see
Been a
Brother
while since
Ross
I've seen you.
signing in, and Brother Sister Jenny signing in. And again, we just want to remind all of our guests that are FaceTiming, when you are not speaking, please silence your speakers so that we
I
will
can't
not
see
get the
Chantel. Can you
background
see
noise.
me?
So I'm hearing people talking in the in the background, and they're our guests, and we just want to share with them. But listen, Chantel, good evening. I don't want to ramble on and on. We know that we have a lot of things
Hi,
to cover.
Chantel.
We have a lot of space to cover, and it's just great to have you here. And one thing, Chantel, we I want to just share with our persons that are FaceTiming. If the camera goes black or if it fades, just go out and then come back in. So, and then that'll usually bring them back in. So I do want to share that with Miss Jenny. So Chantel, let's get this party
Hi.
started.
Yes,
Now, I
I'm.
don't know where you're going to be comfortable starting. As I said, we know the banker
Oh my
was to
goodness.
premiere soon, and we know that we talk a lot about Black Wall Street, and we've
Yes.
covered so much information, beginning with your uncle Anthony Overton and some other names. So
Oh, that's actually
without
my
further,
cousin. That's actually my cousin,
oh,
not my
he's
uncle. Yep.
okay. Anthony is your cousin, not the uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I stand corrected. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions that you just burning questions you want to ask Chantel for our part three of Overton Nation, feel free to jump in. Now, Chantel, I
Yes.
know that we're going again. We're going to discuss a lot of things, and you know that I have this beautiful cup that I received from you as one of your designs that talks about Overton Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we want to save this till later, or we want to just open the program and
Um,
talk about.
we can talk about it now. We can
Okay.
start it off with that now. I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. Y'all know that I'm so multitasking. So many people are
Yeah.
asking me like, where are you? How would I get on? And I'm trying to get
Tell them,
everybody answered.
tell
And
them, tell them they can go to YouTube. They can go to my channel on YouTube. They can
okay,
go to Facebook. They can go to
see,
Periscope. We are live right now on all of those channels.
okay. Hi,
Hi,
Yeah.
cousin.
guys.
And
Hi.
Hi. Mute your mic.
And we know that when we come on over to Nation, it's a family reunion, so not a problem. And we just want
Right.
to we just want to share with our viewers that because we are doing a series on this phenomenal family, they are all very supportive of one another, and it's
Yes.
just the family reunion. So just
Yes.
sit back and relax. And when you want to FaceTime any of the Overtons, then feel free to grab one of these cameras.
Yes.
So
Please jump in
yes,
because like I only see those that pop in on the camera. I'm not. You know what? I should log in. Let me see if I can log in. I should have been better prepared. I'm sorry, guys.
I'll
And
pop
well
in
normally
and
listen.
I
out.
am.
I'll pop in and out. Somebody else can come on. You know I'm here.
Normally a lot more prepared than this. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, because I like
What happened?
We are going to move ahead while my co-host, and again I'll repeat for those of you that do not know, this is part three of Overton Nation. Chantel is now a co-host. She has been recruited to be a co-host. She is no longer just our guest. And
Okay.
Jenny, I know that you've been here once with us before,
Yeah.
and we're happy to see you.
Thank
And
you.
please feel free to come back at any time.
Okay.
I know Brother Ross Slacks, who
Mhm.
actually introduced me
Mhm.
to the Overton family, was here with us earlier. And I want to tell Brother Slacks, feel free to get one of these cameras if you like. And I know you guys have other relatives that are coming on. So we just want to make sure that our viewing audience understand that we are with Overton Nation
Right.
and that there's so much rich historical information that we are going to be discussing relative to all of the topics that we discussed earlier, touching a little bit on Black Wall Street, touching a little bit on the banker, touching a little bit. We our last two shows we talked about um, Madam C.J. Walker and individuals that she was actually uh, tutored by, if I can use that word, which obviously with the Overton family, hair products, and the whole nine. And we need to know our history.
True.
That is one thing that's very critical and very crucial, especially in families of color, or dare we say, families that were enslaved at one point. There is not a lot of history, but the history that is written is usually given by someone else's perspective. Rarely, and I do repeat, rarely are you inclined to speak with individuals that are a living, breathing part of the families that have so much history and when the history comes down. So we just want to, again, thank you for coming and joining us and engage you. Uh, Ms. Chantel, I have told the people enough by now that you're not a guest, that you now are a co-host, and you so now
no sooner than I
I
logged on to my laptop, it kicked me out of it. I was like, what in the world is happening? And then it wouldn't let me log on to the laptop. I was like, what? So, yes, you will have to tell me what, because I like to see the feed for the questions and stuff, and I can't see that on my device that I'm using now.
yes, I often ask, I guess even though we're live, I often ask them to go to if they can get vocal and put their questions in the feed on the get vocal. That makes it a lot easier. But
Okay, cousin
Chantel,
Jennifer,
Yes.
um, mute your mic because we're getting feedback. There you go. Okay.
yes,
Okay, go ahead. Oh no, you're
if you would
fine.
like to, if you would like to give a brief overview of the last two topics that we talked about, just
Oh,
very
oh,
brief, just very
okay. I'm trying to think. The first time we talked, we did a kind of brief overview of the family history, which is pretty much impossible, which is why you called us or invited us back to do a series because it was just it's so much history when it comes to our family.
yes,
Then the second series we did, we focused more on Ada Overton Walker, and
right,
quite honestly, I don't feel that I still did her any major just. Um, I still had a lot of people that text me and emailed me and asked a ton of questions. And a lot of them, I was like, wow, I wished I would have kind of covered that. So we may have to revisit her again. But this series, we're gonna kind of be a little broad, but yet it's going to really be about the obtaining wealth and entrepreneurship. And one of my family members that was so excellent in doing it and executing it was Anthony Overton. But really, it was his father who was more impressive than Anthony. Anthony just happened to be a little bit more well known than his father. And that's why it's important to one, know history, two, to preserve it, even if it's your own personal family history, because some of that history is really Black history. It's American history, and it should be preserved. And the other part of that is because we need to control our narrative. And and one of the major reasons we need to control our narrative is because if you do know history, history is manipulated by those that continue to try to oppress those that don't look like them, meaning
Yes.
mainly, as my friend loved to say, less melanin individuals. As many of us who are way past our 20s, we know that you learn a very fabricated history and you're required to learn it for 4 years. So often when I hear people say, oh, I don't want to hear anything about history, I don't want to hear anything about slavery, I often ask them, do you have a high school diploma? And they're like, of course I do. Okay, you are required to learn their fabricated history. And now you're standing before me telling me you don't want to know, one, the truth, and two, anything about you or the people who paved the way for you to have the luxuries and rights that you have today. So that bothers me. So one of the things is that in our talk today, and we'll get a little bit deeper in it, is this history. And when you see it and how it unfolds, you kind of understand why and what's going on today and why those things are still being allowed. Because again, after we had received and gained so many different rights per se, because some people don't understand that an act and an actual rights are different. So some of our rights are still up under an act that has not actually become a unbreakable law, you know. So with that being said, we have to be very careful on the things that we pass on to our descendants, whether it's your children, your grandchildren, or anyone in your family that look up to you for guidance. Because often, again, I hear people say, oh, we don't need to talk about that. Well, a lot of our stories in our history was stolen and lost because we didn't talk about it. But most of our ancestors didn't talk about it back then because they were bond to not being able to, meaning that if they spoke of it, they could very well lose their life or they could very well lose their livelihood. Well, I'm a say in the same manner that Killer Mike just said at the summit in Atlanta, I do believe they had it at. We've been free, now act like it.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
assertive. And this statement I'm going to make will make even more sense as we get, you know, a little bit more into the conversation. If you're not ready to stand flat-footed in front of someone and call them out for what you feel they have done ill-willed or that is illegally being done, then what you're not ready to really have a open and honest conversation. Now, I say that to say, and I'm gonna start off with the review of the movie Harriet and why this movie is the very reason why history is so important. Now, I'm heartbroken because I did learn just recently in the last 24, 48 hours, there is a Black male who also wrote this script. But the director and the co-writer of this script is a Black woman from St. Louis, Missouri, which is right across the water from me. I'm on the Illinois side. So if you know this area, East St. Louis, we're in two different states, but we're less than a rock throw from each other. So that being said, I was very excited, and without even seeing it, I ran and told everybody, oh, this is a must see movie, until I saw it. And Mr. Melvin, me and you just recently had a conversation that I'm often asked to come to premieres because people know what I do and the work I do in history. But I decline those premieres and those special screenings because I don't want to become such a familiar face to people that you adjust the way that you are truly going to act or perceive something because you know where I stand. So I like to go into the movie theater and I like to look at who's here. And then I like to look at the reaction based on what the story is stating. So there was a lot of chatter out long before I went about why you shouldn't go see it. I still wanted to see it because I needed to know for myself. Now, I will say this before I give the full review. You can save your money. Now, I'm going to tell you, you need to see it because you need to see the foolery that happened in it. But save your money till you can see it for free because somebody still owe me $25. And when I see the young lady, when she comes here to speak in St. Louis, I'm going to tell her to her face, I think you, the studio, and everybody involved owe me $25 plus my time.
Okay.
So with that being said, basically everybody knows the surface of Harriet Tubman's story. She's such an icon and so much grander than most of our historical figures. The injustice that they did with this script was beyond disrespectful.
Okay.
One, I do understand that this is not a documentary and that there will be a creative way of writing that you tell the story to move it along. But because you said it was based on her true life, it should have had more truth than Hollywood in it. First and foremost, I tend to see, because of my love for history, my knowledge of history, and also my college and my educational background, I tend to see beyond the surface than most people. Plus, I'm a visual artist. I'm a professional photographer, so I see things that most people don't see. So the first thing, and I literally almost got up and left the theater, they have this Black bounty hunter. So the information that you hear out there is true, but what they're upset about ran deeper for me. Not only do you have this Black bounty hunter, now you are continuing to drive the narrative that Black men are to be feared. Mm-hmm. Black men don't support their race, and Black men are very detrimental to Black women. Mm-hmm. Because this man in this movie, not only is he the number one, agitator going out to, try to capture Harriet Tubman, he goes to the woman who is housing her and stomps her to death. Right. While the actual slave owner is just watching. And I'm like, first of all, let's talk about how historically incorrect this is. The first thing I was like, if you know history, how many even free Black men did you know that could walk around freely with any type of weapon? Because you do know during this time we had to walk around with freedom papers. So at that time, they didn't have conceal and carry papers. So are you kidding me? That was one of the main things why most of the revolts did not succeed and others did, because they got to the armory. Like Nat Turner, he ran for Nate Turner. I got to be thinking of Nat Parker, but it's Nate Turner. He ran for the armory because he knew he had to, arm himself to go to battle to be equally yoked to them that was battling him. So I'm like, no, you wouldn't let this, especially this huge black man, be running around. And then they made his character comical because of the things and the lines he was saying and the way that he was delivering them. And I was like, after a few chuckles, because the majority of people who were in the theater with me were Caucasian, and they were laughing. And I'm like, oh, there's nothing about her life that's laughable. So I immediately almost got up and left. And I said, no. Let me wait and finish looking at this stupidity. Then the second thing is that instead of her slave master wanting to take revenge on her, in the movie, he becomes like a hero by saving her from this made up character.
Right.
And I'm like, so this movie was really made to make Caucasians and others that aren't African American, Black, or whatever you want to call yourself, comfortable.
Right.
Well, there's nothing comfortable about the Holocaust that we went through. So if you're not going to tell the story, if you're not going to highlight her life truly as it happened, or at least highlight, some key events in her life, then leave the story alone. Some people was like, well, at least it made it to the big screen. It did more damage than it did, good, honestly. The other thing is that one of the major conversations we're having about Harriet Tubman right now is her being on the $20 bill. It blew my mind that it was a blip in the actual film that you showed how she served in the military.
Right.
That alone, you could have taken that much information, that event, and filled 2 hours. Now, I'm going to say this as a footnote. If you truly want to see someone act out her events in life, if anybody has Hulu, and I don't know if it's on Netflix, I know it's on Hulu, the series Underground, check that out. Check that. They introduced her to the cast, very dramatic, very strong, and very honorable, the way she should have been, along with her entire storyline. They had not gotten to the point of her, serving in service, because most people don't understand that she died broke, because she was giving so much to others that she was still fighting. And I think like maybe a few years before her death, she finally got her benefits from the military. They fought her on her benefits. Now, this is a woman who you enslaved, then you turned around and had a whole nation looking for her to hunt her down, and not Black folks. And then you turn around, she, because of her knowledge of the underground and the information she's getting from slaves in the Confederate, lines, that you're able to win a key battle that actually ultimately won the Civil War for this country.
Right.
And you mean to tell me this whole entire movie, you all focus on this Black bounty man and how she escaped? Because even how she escaped is not really how she escaped. Right. So it was like, you have got to be kidding me. So where some people was mad because this actor is from another country, I could care less about any of that, because the acting was very good, including the guy that the bounty guy that shouldn't have been in this movie at all. All of their acting skills were up to par.
Mhm.
But because of that, my thought after I left the movie was like, how many people are going to take this for the gospel? How many people are going to really believe this is how it happened? Because see, that continues the narrative is that y'all were in slavery because y'all kept yourselves there.
Yeah.
Y'all are the reason that y'all were even captured. And no, we were hunted down like animals.
Mhm.
So it's like, stop with the fabricated information. And again, if it's so sensitive to you, then don't talk about it at all.
Well, let me ask you this
Let's
question.
not have a
Let me ask you
conversation.
this question. I obviously concur, as you stated, you and I did discuss this prior to us coming on. But where, in your opinion, should we begin? I know you mentioned earlier, if people are not ready to stand flat-footed and address the oppressor and address the oppressed actions of the oppressor, then they may as well stay seated and stay silent. So, with those of us that are active in our voices, that are active in our demeanor, active in our nature, what would you suggest to those that try to remain quiet but are in opposition? Where would you suggest they start in addressing
They start at
this
home.
atrocity?
Everything starts at home.
Okay.
Your children are most impressionable from the time that they're born to they're 12 years old. And that is one of the reasons why Anthony Overton and W.E. Du Bois did not really get along with Marcus Garvey. They all had differences. They respected each other, but Anthony spoke out very loudly about desegregation
Mhm.
because his thing was desegregation was a tactic that they were using to gain the wealth that was being built in the black communities without including us.
And
Now,
they're still doing it. They're
right
still doing it.
now, many years later, over 100 years later, we find that his statements are true.
Hmm.
They integrated us, but they did not fully integrate
Hmm.
us because all you wanted was my money and my wealth. And what we don't understand is that our health and our time is a key component to our wealth. So, being an individual who went to a predominantly white school that came out of a predominantly mixed and black school when I was younger and only spent 2.5 years in a predominantly white school, I can tell you that if you don't send your child who goes to those type of institutions prepared mentally, they're prepared to rewire you to believe what they're wanting you and programming you to believe. I had a history teacher who claimed to be a historian tell me that Cleopatra was white.
Yeah.
And I had to very, firmly tell him, and I got some vacation time off too, but I firmly told him, scientifically, she couldn't be white. Now, Elizabeth Taylor, you're absolutely right. She's white and she did a marvelous job in acting out of Black woman's life, but the real life woman was never white. And you have other historians that'll tell you she's from other parts and she wasn't Egyptian and all. At the end of the day, in order for you to live in that region, you have to have some melanin in your skin
Well, Chantel,
because
as you share that, let me interject and jump in with this. Most of that therein lies the problem. As you've already shared with us about starting at home with the parents, about preparing our children to be resistant, intellectually resistant to try to having their minds poisoned. And as far as people regionally, it goes back as far as those that we call ourselves Christians, and people argue about God,
Mhm.
etc. And actually, just today, as you share that, I said, well, unless you have a different Bible from me, it said he had hair like lamb's wool and feet of brass, etc. So that's not a white
Absolutely.
person. And I said, when you look at the region where he was, and I do say alleged, where he was allegedly born, there were no quote white people there. I call them less melanated. There were no white people there.
Right.
So how can he
Right.
and his family go and hide if
Mm-hmm.
he is of, if so, he would be so easy to pick out. So, when you share that,
Absolutely.
and I also allow me to share when you were talking about, how we are, quote, accepted but robbed of our finances. Other areas where we're blinded, as speaking as a former athlete myself, and with you being an entertainer, is you want to enjoy my entertainment because you can get rich.
Mm-hmm.
You want to enjoy my athletic expertise because you can get rich. But you want to put
Mm-hmm.
stipulations and set certain parameters for me, a la Colin Kaepernick, so that I can make you
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. And you, as you share that, we even
Absolutely.
have people of color, even to this day, still trying to argue
Mm-hmm.
about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, failing to
Mm-hmm.
address. The man told everybody very clearly, I'm protesting the murdering of African American unarmed murder, etc. He made that very clear. To this very day,
Mm-hmm.
that still is not being addressed, but it's all Colin's fault. So I just wanted to
Absolutely.
interject that, as why you were sharing about Harriet, because
I,
and I'll give you my quick take
absolutely.
on it. I was disappointed as well with Harriet because I saw the same thing that you're talking about. Is okay. I said, okay, here we go again. You got the brother mistreating women. He's going to stump the woman,
Mm-hmm.
beat her up, and then murder the woman. Then you have the massa telling him
Mm-hmm.
that he want her alive, but he takes it upon
Right.
himself, and uses the word die be
Yes.
and continues to try to murder her.
Right.
Now, when you say, how will that be viewed? I guarantee you and I both know, and Jenny knows, it will be viewed exactly like it was portrayed in the movie. That's what people are going to
Absolutely.
think.
And that's one of the things that I even said to the family when it first, when because I always go, we have our own family private group.
Yeah.
I went on immediately and gave my review of it. And I said, that's one of the reasons that even if you may not like Tyler Perry, his style of comedy and movies and what he does as his craft, you have to respect him because he gave a acceptance speech at an award show and he said, it's okay for you all to be running and fighting at the Oscars for a seat at the table. He didn't deny you that, but he said while you're doing that, I'll be down in Atlanta making my own table. And then people finally saw what he meant by that when he finally revealed the extension and the new grounds that he had extendedly built his studio.
Yeah.
Because again, we keep asking for permission. And that's like I said the last time we talked, we need to stop looking at our ancestors as victims. They never saw themselves as victims. They saw themselves in a battle.
Right.
And they saw themselves, in a major war. So they made for sure to keep moving and winning the battle till they finally won the war for us. And many of them knew that they would be sacrificing their life, their time, and their wealth in order to make for sure the descendants that they would never see would actually benefit from all of their work. And that's what I'm now saying to us. We have to get back to that because we know we no longer prepare for our descendants that we won't even see.
Right. So
When
then,
I introduced and started and created the entrepreneur program for Overton Nation, I was creating that for 100 years later. This is going to benefit the descendants of my family. Even though I don't have children myself, I still feel obligated to make for sure, no matter what my family may come up against, that I'm not going to just feed you. Let me teach you how to fish.
yes.
See, because if I teach you how to fish, I'm going to feed you for a lifetime. Because a meal today of me handing it to you, you're still going to look for a meal tomorrow.
Absolutely.
No, but if I teach you how to fish, all you have to do is find the pond in the lake and you know how to go get it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we have to get back to that more family together and tribal. And what that means is not that everybody should think alike or agree with each other. Because there's many family members that I love and I love at far. And I normally don't see them until the reunion. Like, hey, and yep, that's the only time I'm gonna see
Or the
you.
funeral.
You know, and I still love
Or
you.
the
And I'm gonna
funeral.
still give you this good knowledge. But me and you don't mix like that. So we need to stop thinking like that. Same as the fighting of the Democrats and the Republicans. No, think for yourself. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. What do you have for me? What are you doing for me collectively as my people? Because that means now that my family can take advantage of that. Because if you're not doing something collective for me like you're doing for the rich, then you're not the candidate that I need to vote for. Then we need to stop saying, oh, we don't vote because, you know, that don't really matter. Well, if you don't have representation at the table, then that goes back to what the old people say. You have no dog in the race. And if you have no dog in the race, you have no chance of winning this race. So stop continuing the ignorance. Stop passing that down. Because if you go back and truly look at history, as we're talking about, you'll see that our ancestors never took on those characteristics, never passed that on. What they did is that you got to think we're the only race that was stripped of everything, our land, our culture, and our actual language. But we were plotted down in a unfamiliar region. We learned not one language, but several languages, still trying to hold on to our own native tongue. And we learn how to cultivate the land. And actually, because of all of the things that we done naturally in Africa, we saved many of their lives with home remedies. So it's like, stop acting like slavery is this taboo and very dirty word. No, I honor them. I go to plantations. I go to historical places to honor my ancestors, to say, no, you're not forgotten. Let me tell you, because trust and believe, energy never dies. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, they're looking down on us going, what in the world happened here? Especially Dr. King. You mean to tell me I could have been with my kids till I was 90 some years old. I risked my life for y'all, and this is what y'all do?
Well, you know,
like, no, stop it.
As you share that, Chantel, when we, the modern we, may I use the word, the productive, aggressive, forward thinking we, when we start to embrace exactly what you're saying, then in my opinion, then we will move forward. Because mm-hmm. my experience, again, unfortunately, has shown me and continues to show me that once we start to progress, start to move forward, then we try to distance us from we. Now, that's not going to make sense to a lot of people, but all of a sudden.
Oh, no, I completely understand that.
So
I completely understand that. But that's where, again, you have to be conscious of what you're doing, and you have to be doing everything for the right reasons. Now, if you're doing this for self-absorbment, for your own personal gain, what I'm laying before you will never work, period. You know, like, I fight, my family knows, and I often tell them, I fight every day mm-hmm. for them.
And you know what?
And I often tell them, all you have to do is at least support me in the fight, because I'll go out and do the battle. I have no problem. I'm built for this.
And I think that's a perfect segue.
As long as you do that.
And I think that's a perfect segue
into
this cup. Let's talk about.
Okay.
Let's talk about
yes. Cup. And that's what I was getting to, is that we have to get back to the mindset of building for ourselves. Yes. Anthony's father, and I'll be in Monroe, Louisiana, doing Black History Month. We still haven't worked out all the details. Okay. And for those of us, yes, because I'll be bringing down the artifacts. As you guys know, we have a pop-up museum, and we're going to talk about a lot of unknown real history that, if most people knew about it, especially our babies, it would change the course of their life. So that's what we're about, is affecting us, you know, in a positive way, and putting us on the right path.
Okay. Pause,
so anyway, what
Anthony
father?
Let's mm-hmm. Now I saw some thumbs going up, and they go up all the time. But you mentioned a pop-up museum, and you mentioned coming to Monroe, Louisiana, during Black History Month. Will you just take a moment and address that briefly before getting back to the cup, if we can, if we can put a pause
Yes.
on the cup for a second, and let's talk a little bit about that pop-up museum.
Okay, the pop-up museum actually is a historical walk of over 100 years of Overton history that happens to be deeply embedded in American history. Um, a lot of our family members passed down artifacts to us. Some of them, when I joined the organization that my uncle founded, Dr. James Overton III, I went out and acquired some of them, but most of them was passed down to us. So, like, I just pulled this out. This is a pamphlet or a booklet, a hymn book that Anthony did and produced himself. This book is actually 106 years old.
Okay.
So then the money that we're going to talk about, here it is.
Okay.
I had an auction house that we had some of the money, but not as old as this. This is from 1921. And I had an auction house contact me, and basically I negotiated with the seller because he was much higher than I was like, well, you go ahead, keep that. You'll have a piece of Overton, history. He was like, no, I think it should rightfully be with your family. Then you and I need to talk about a different price. So we'll have these things along with myself there for open questions, question and answer session, as well as me briefly taking you over the history and showing you kind of how it played out for African Americans, period,
Mhm.
and in this country. But not only that, also our Caucasian side of the family, how that played out for them when they came over from England and how they gained their wealth, and then how they passed that on to the mulatto children, which happened to be us. So we do it based on people booking us, and Mr. Ross, which I love, in Monroe, Louisiana. He brought us down before, and he's bringing us back down. But like I said, we don't have the logistics yet. We'll come back on here and I'll give you dates and everything. Or you guys can follow me on Oh My Net, on pretty much every social media. Now, I will tell you, I'm not always politically correct, so be cautious on if you follow me, because I'm good and grown, so I'm gonna say what I want to say. Or you can follow the family's Instagram, or because our Facebook is private, and that's on Overton Nation, all one word. And then we'll have the dates there as well. So that's pretty much what we're gonna do. I think I may have like maybe 1 or 2 slots left for Black History Month, because Monroe, Louisiana is not the only place that we're going to go. We have a bid for us to come to Chicago, for us to go to Indianapolis, and somewhere here in Missouri. I had a couple people inquire. So I'm just waiting, and all those dates are tentative. So if you actually come in and give the bid and that person hasn't signed paperwork with me, then that's the date you get.
Right.
So yes, and you can reach me through overtonation@gmail.com. So you'll get to see the actual money itself up close and personal. There's a lot of surprises. There's a lot that even the family, because I set up the museum every family reunion, and a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, I didn't know we were related to this, or this was related to the family. And it's a lot. So it's over 100 years of artifacts.
Wow, that's very interesting.
So
Very interesting.
yes.
I
So I am going to talk about this. One, like I said, Anthony's father, Antoine Overton, which then later on he changed his name to Anthony, and he became Anthony Sr. He ended up being one of the first legislators in Louisiana coming out of slavery.
mhm.
And they talk about his father, who is Caucasian, who was a white Overton, that came to see him argue his first case at the Capitol. So we actually have those historical documents as well. Well, through his entrepreneurship, guidance and knowledge of business. But when you know the Caucasian Overtons, you can really understand why the mulatto children understood law and business and entrepreneurship and knew how to kind of move about. But that did not stop them from being basically discriminated against,
Mhm.
especially because of the family that they were connected to and belonged to. So they were ran out of Louisiana and they ran to Oklahoma, where Anthony and his wife settled a city. And again, I still don't have the city's name because I have so much knowledge in my head, but I will get that for you guys the next time because it's now called something else, if I'm not mistaken. But his wife was so awesome. She opened up the first post office. She was the first postmaster, and they ran that city. And I want to say it was the Dalton brothers, which is the Jesse James gang, that ran them out of there. But prior to that, Anthony's brother, Mac Overton, joined the Buffalo Soldiers. And during that time, they were, because of the other extended family members that married into the Overtons, like the Hughes, John Brown, all of them that were connected or either married into the Overtons, they were doing activism at that time. And so they were building cities. And one of those cities that they built because of segregation was Black Wall Street. And Anthony and Mac helped with the blueprint of that, even though their names do not appear in the historical documents. But what they did is that when Anthony was then ran out of Oklahoma and ran to Chicago, Illinois, he then started friendships and partnerships, which pretty much from what family oral history, as well as even some documents state, these people knew each other and were friends with each other prior to him getting there, which is the Ida B. Wells, W.E. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. So all of these people are up in Chicago because there's the great migration now happening
Mhm.
towards the north. And what they did is that they took the same blueprint from Black Wall Street and built Bronzeville. So those from Chicago know what Bronzeville is. And it's really just a duplication of Black Wall Street. It just didn't get as large or have as much notoriety as Black Wall Street has now. And Black Wall Street really would not have had the notoriety that it has if that riot had not happened.
Right. Now,
So part of what,
may I interrupt one minute, please? I see we have other guests. I'm assuming they're family members because I see all of my guests I know. But I just want to share with them that they are more than welcome to grab one of these cameras. Just grab this spot, and you'll be on live with Chantel and myself as she discusses your family history. And you may want to add something yourselves. So please feel free to grab one of those cameras if you want to FaceTime us, or as well, our regular listening audience, if you want to ask Chantel personally, then grab one of those cameras. So Chantel, my apologies. Please continue.
oh no, not at all. So basically what we did in order to help fund the Kidpreneur program, because I want to extend it, because we're including other children that aren't Overton family members, because I believe all kids need to know, even if they never do it, they need to know how to start a business. They need to know how the stock market works. They need to know just simply how money works, how it moves in our system here in the United States as well as internationally. And so to do that, what we do is that we normally sell T-shirts, and most of the T-shirts that me and my cousin, who's in Paris, and if you're in Paris, make sure you take the Black History tour. He is the historian that does that tour, and he's worked very hard to get that tour together. And it's world, renowned and acclaimed. So make sure if you're in Paris, take that. But he's our illustrator, and most of the concepts that I've come up with have really been more so focused on just the family. So what we did is that we decided we were going to do a new version of it and make it more about people owning a piece of Black history. It just so happens to be one of our family members. So the mug that you have,
Yes.
it has the same print that I have on my shirt.
Okay.
And as you can see it, it says first Black owned 1921. And it is National Chartered Bank, because Anthony owned the first national chartered bank,
Right.
not the first Black owned bank, but the first national chartered bank, meaning that he had to get permission from the United States, and the United States basically backed all of his deposits.
Right.
So there was an argument with several historians that that was incorrect. But I worked with the National U.S. Current Treasury, as well as my attorney, to figure it out. And they sent me his application, and his application was granted November 4th, 1921, which makes him the first. And along with that, they sent this photograph of all these Black bankers. Now, until like a month ago, I thought no one had seen that in the family, but come to find out, my uncle had a copy of it from his father, which is my great grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, but on his, it doesn't have this writing and stuff. So I was like, well, wait a minute. You didn't think this was, he's like, oh no, I thought I sent this to you. And I'm like, because I sent it to him thinking I'm showing him something new. And he's like, oh no, niece, I have that picture. And I'm like, what? So anyway, it just shows just how embedded and how much we were doing in spite of all of the laws and the oppression against us. So with that being said, the shirt, you can go on overtonnation.com, go in the store, and you can buy any of our shirts. Anything that you like on there, you can buy. And this shirt is on there. For the relaxed fit that I have on, it's 25. And for the classic tee, it's 22. But if you want that mug, which Mr. Melvin is the first recipient of that mug.
And I'm so honored. I am so honored.
Well, in honor of the organization and the family and myself, we wanted to give you and gift you something thank you for all that you do for us. So we thought, wow, why don't we give him the first mug? So in order to get that mug, you would have to donate $20 or more, and we will send you that mug, but you cannot purchase it.
Wow. Okay.
So,
I feel doubly honored. I'm very appreciative. Well, listen, I know you've been on a while, and we're doing a series with Overton Nation, and I'm telling you, I just did not want to interrupt you, but my monitor is going crazy with all of these thumbs ups and all of these hearts and that kind of thing. So we certainly want to continue this series, and I know that you and I will be getting together to discuss when we'll be doing Overton Part 4. And I am just excited. I was not aware of the mini museum. I was not aware of that.
Oh yeah. So like I said, people who will follow me personally on social media, I do a lot of historical walks because, like I said, I love history. And I've even heard from friends that said, oh, you went to so-and-so and I never knew that existed. And I didn't know it was that close, or, didn't know that it was, in that particular city or state. And it's because, I know of these things because I seek them. Yes. If I read about it, I want to know if it still exists. And if it does, where is it? And am I allowed to put my feet on it, or is it private property? And so I go and explore. So those are things that you get to kind of see and walk through this journey with me. And I tell people, especially I have a lot of extended family and friends that have been so supportive since I started with Overton Nation. And I appreciate you guys and want to personally thank you, along with my family members that have been on the front lines with me. And we're going to end up getting this done. But again, we have to start with our babies. Absolutely. And as everyone knows, it takes capital. Most of the time I take out of my own personal money, or the Overton Nations board funds it. And we go do the traveling and the work. So again, I'm not one to just be like with my hand out like, hey, give me. If you give me something, I'm going to give you something just as valuable. So I've often told people, if you go to our store, you can purchase something and now you own a piece of history.
Absolutely.
So again, like, how many people really know how many Black owned banks there were? How many people really know a person who's a descendant of a person who was one of the first groundbreakers?
Mm-hmm.
It's not many of these that are left around. That's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody knows Black Friday is Friday, and one of the ways that we can truly gain and shift the course of what's going on and gain our wealth is shift your money. Just shift your money. You don't have to be out protesting, yelling, screaming, all of that. Just shift your money.
Absolutely.
So
Go ahead.
I personally say shift it and help me help your babies.
Perfect. Listen, a perfect place to end Overton Nation Part 3. And one final question. Being a Louisianian myself, and with there being a plethora of plantations in Louisiana, are there several, or is there one in particular that you might recommend for us to visit as we await the museum in Monroe, as we get more information as to what you're doing?
Absolutely. Cousin Jennifer, mute yourself again. No, you're fine, cousin.
We also have Tamika Ayers, and I want to tell Tamika
Hi, cousin Tamika.
if she log out and hit, well, not log out, but if she just X out and X back in, because her camera, her face is not coming through as we close
Oh
this
no,
segment.
she's probably doing that on purpose.
Okay.
She's doing that on purpose.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my light in my room is not on. That's what it is. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
I know my cousin. She was doing it on purpose.
Okay.
She is tech savvy, so she was doing it on purpose.
Okay.
Too.
So no, you asked me before we just got to talking. Is that what would be the one? There's not just one. Hi, cousin Darlene. There's not just one. There's actually going to be two, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna do the second best first. That would be the Laurel Plantation.
The Laurel.
It is where
Laurel.
Laura. No. Laura.
I'm sorry.
Right, because there's Laurel, which has the oldest slave homes on it, but that's a ways out. We'll talk about that later. But Laura Plantation is on Plantation Row. And that is where like all of the big plantations that you've seen in movies, that's where they sit at. They sit on Plantation Row.
Yes.
It's in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So that being said, the second best one to me is Laura. Laura, because that is where Bear Rabbit was penned.
Really?
Most people don't know Bear Rabbit was a story that was brought over from Africa. And what they used it for was to tell the slaves, because they were able to gather on Sunday evening and dance and tell stories to the children. So they used this child story to tell when the conductors like Harriet Tubman was coming through. And that's why you have Bear Rabbit and the bear and the fox, that because the bear is the overseer, the fox is the slave owner, and Bear Rabbit is the actual slave. Right. So they use that so that other, people down through the Plantation Road would understand when she was coming through, along with using song. So that's the second best. The number one, which you will Google and find out, a lot of Caucasians are mad at this plantation, and it is a white man who owns it, a white millionaire who owns it. Hats off to him. There is an African historian that he got, Dr. Abraham. I personally have a photo with him now. I was so honored that when we went to our reunion last year in New Orleans, this year, this past June in New Orleans, we were supposed to do a scavenger hunt, but my family, it was so hot that I said, hey, look, why don't you guys do this plantation?
Mhm.
Like, this is life-changing. The life-changing plantation is Whitney
I
Plantation.
thought you was gonna say the
Whitney
Whitney.
Plantation is the Whitney Plantation is so different than any other plantation because it is a museum and preserved in homage to the slave and their plight through slavery.
Yes.
It barely even talks about the slave owner, which is why most white people that go, they get mad about that.
Mhm.
So with that being said, I'm telling you, it's life changing. And my family was so appreciative that it was so hot that we ended up shifting our activities and doing this as a family. And Dr. Abraham actually was our tour guide. So it was such an honor to hear from the man that actually created the tour and help get a lot of the information, historical information for that plantation.
Mhm.
You there it's just, you have to go see it. It's a lot to take in, and I will tell you, you will go through every emotion known to man,
Mhm.
especially if you're sensitive to it. But it is something I think every person should experience, especially African Americans. And those are my family members that didn't get to attend the reunion. I told them, you have to go and experience this plantation. I experienced it like a week after it opened. I ran down there and did it because with my involvement with the NFL, you know, we're involved with the Urban League and all of that. The descendants, the mulatto descendants from that, is the first Black mayor's wife is a descendant from that. And her son was the second Black mayor, which now he is the president of, he used to be the president of Urban League, but now I think he's the president of the NAACP. His wife is co-host to Gail on ABC on the morning news. So there's a lot of current history wrapped around that.
I need to talk to her. I'm a former Urban League director and a former NAACP president. And the reason it's former was because I left Michigan when I returned to Louisiana, and I just never got back into those offices. But I'm a lifetime NAACP member, former president, as well as the Urban League. And I'm happy to go on record as saying each time they were angry because I decided to make some other professional moves. So I am very well versed with the Urban League, very well versed with the NAACP, and it's just very refreshing to hear you say that. I also, if you allow me to share as well, I have watched the Whitney Plantation on YouTube, and I've had the privilege to visit the slave dungeons in Ghana. I've been to the door of no return, etc. As a matter of fact, I was part of the entourage in 2012-13 when they were renaming the door of no return to Rosa Parks Pathway in Africa.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. So it's something to see and to behold. And that's why I listen, I'm telling you right now, that's why I was so excited when I said, okay, I get to talk to the Overton Nation. I get to talk to the real people, the real descendants. and I think I told Ross, he was on earlier, and I told Ross, hey man, listen, I really appreciate this because having been in a situation where, you know, having high profile actors on, having high profile athletes on, etc., and we're all descendants. But I never I was very blessed. My grandmother, who died at 106, she's been passed away now about 16 years ago. She was a child of people just coming out of slavery, and then my mother's grandmother, who died at 111, her parents were actually slaves. She's been dead about 35. So anyway, when I get excited about having the opportunity to speak with individuals that can connect us to a real and true history. And as you share about being, you know, us being stripped of our languages and things like that. I mean, when I was in Ghana, they blew my mind. And he said, well, hey man, we speak in excess of 70 languages. And I'm saying I have difficulty speaking one. and
Absolutely.
and you guys,
Because for the longest time we weren't allowed to learn.
yes,
And what we didn't realize is that our ancestors who were actually taken from the shorelines of Africa,
yes,
they spoke several languages because
yes,
they were trading with different countries. But again, that takes people digging into history. I often even tell the family, when I give you something, when I give you some information, of course, you can
mhm,
trust me to be telling you the truth, but go seek the rest of it out for yourself. Make
yes,
for sure that I'm on point because I'm still human.
And
You may end up coming back to me and giving me some information that I didn't know.
that's how I came along.
Go ahead, Tamika. I'm
I
sorry.
was just saying, just wanted to point out, I've been on all four, or three segments so far that we've had, and that's how I came along. That's how I met Shani
great,
years ago. Um, and there's two black lines of the Overtons. One, hers is Rachel, and I'm from the second black line, which is Emmeline. And my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother's grandmother, my great grandmother, her name was Mary Ada Overton, but she married a Doyle.
Mm-hmm.
And she was
mhm,
born right, a child right there of that plantation. And I came to
Mm-hmm.
Memphis, and so I came here to go to school. I graduated from the University of Memphis, and coming here, I did not realize in Tennessee that my family has such a rich history here. And so we have a couple of family historians. Shani is one of them, and then I have my cousin Anthony Smith, we call him cousin Mac. He's in his 70s, and
Yeah.
about every single side. And so, talking with cousin Mac and Shani, it just kind of connected. We were like the last line that needed to be connected to the Overtons,
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and we have been on this journey together ever since. And I am just as excited as you are because I am a history buff too. Me and Shani have a lot in common in that area. I love, love, love history,
Mm-hmm.
especially my family history. And so
Yeah,
being able to listen to her and taking all the knowledge, all the information, knowing about Black Wall Street, but not knowing that my own blood had a direct connection to that, and such
that's huge,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it?
that. Yeah, that was,
That's huge.
oh yeah, very huge. The last 3-4 years
But
have been
see,
very mind blowing. So I just wanted to share that.
but that's
It's a lot, but I am in Overton. The women Overton. Our lines. The name gets lost when you go to
right.
the women. So
Hey, listen, I understand.
Well,
Being a male,
that's
believe
part
me,
of
I
why we
understand.
why we do what we do.
Hmm.
That's part of why we do what we do and what I tell all families to do. One of the things that we've gotten away from as African Americans is having that connection, having that network from slavery up until like the 60s, the mid to late
hmm
60s. You had this network of people that knew each other. And if you didn't know them personally, they knew somebody that knew somebody that could get you to the next level. We have all become so self-centered to say, oh, I'm just taking care of me and mine.
Yeah.
Well, where has that gotten us? That has now reversed at least over 100 years of work of our ancestors by saying, I'm not going to worry about so and so. So again, that's one of the things that I keep trying to get collectively everyone to see is that you have to make for sure to take care of the next person who look like you, and you have to be that village, because even with children, if you don't help that individual who don't know how to raise that child to be a productive child, now that may not be your child, but that very well may be your problem.
hmm
That may come to your front door because you have decided to
Not
look the
to.
other way.
hmm
So again, we have to bridge that gap between the generations. And then we have to be respectful. My family know the first thing I say, the foundation to anything and everything we do will be respect. Because the minute you usher out respect, then you usher in chaos. And again, my family knows me. I keep a pair of clown shoes in my back pocket. Don't have a problem putting them on. I'm an Overton. But at the same time, I'm as peaceful and loving as you allow me to be.
Okay.
So again, we have to respect
This
even our
is sweet.
our young generation.
Yeah, I hear you. So listen, ladies, listen, listen, listen. Allow me to say that this just gets more interesting as we go forward. And I see we have John is here, and welcome John and Jenny. I know she's been here a
John
while.
is a direct descendant. That is my cousin John.
Okay.
That is Anthony Overton's great great grandson.
Well, all right, that's fantastic. And Miss Darlene and Miss Tamika, and of course, so listen, guys. I see. To me, when Ross Slacks introduced me to the Overton family, I said, "Man, this is a treasure trove," because I went and researched it right away, and that's why I'm saying I'm going to talk to Ross tomorrow because I told you we have a project called Shackles 400 that I'll tell you guys
Mm-hmm.
about another time, and we worked on that project. But anyway, you our project is exactly what you guys are talking about. And we're walking it through history from the time that our ancestors left the shores of Africa until the time they docked in New
Mhm.
Orleans. And history
Okay.
in history tell us that the first slaves that actually hit Louisiana was like 1708, and the first slave ship actually docked in New Orleans in 1719. So our Shackles 400 group has been working with this, and when he mentioned the Overtons to me, and I went and researched this, I said, "Man, this is a treasure trove." So I just want the family to hear from me as we prepare for part 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, how many we have to do, is that it's a pleasure meeting all of you, and I'm sure that we're going to continue to talk and to meet and address one another. So, without further ado, Miss Chantel, if you or the ladies would like to tell our audience how they might contact you, please do so, and
Sure.
I will follow up, and then we will close this segment and prepare for the next 15.
Okay. And I want to say this real quick. There is a movie out called The Banker. One of the reasons that I was kind of skeptical of Harriet is that no one in the mainstream was against that movie. Well, once I saw it, I saw why. There are descendants of this black man who this story, he's one of the two that the story is about. It is one of his descendants, along with others that are coming out against this movie. Um, I am telling my family personally, as well as those that don't know, because many don't know blacks owned banks and moved even long before this story. Go see this movie. And I said that I wasn't going to say that again until I saw the movie, but no. When I see the opposition to this movie and the inside of the individuals that told me about the script prior to it even being finished, go see this movie. So I wanted to say that. And if anyone needs to contact me
Mhm.
or get a hold of a family member, you can go to Overton Nation, all one word, at gmail.com. Or you can go to Overton Nation, all one word.com, and we have a contact form there. You can fill it out there on our website. Again, I want to remind people this is a limited commemorative t-shirt that is now on sale. It is to help us expand and continue our program with the kids, called the Kidpreneur Program. Mr. Melvin is holding the limited edition mug. You cannot purchase that, but if you donate $20 or more, we will send you that mug, and he is the first recipient of that mug.
And I'm
Okay.
so grateful. Listen, guys, it's been great. And as I said, we're going to prepare for the next 15. I have a loyal audience, man. I really appreciate these guys. Listen, Tamika's been here with us from the onset. She's sharing, and Darlene may not know, but we have people from Venezuela. We have people from the motherland. We have people from Scotland. They're all over. So
Wow.
your story is literally being told all over the world. But listen, let me
Well,
say
thank you guys.
to our new viewers, my name is Melvin Lars. I am your host of the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. And listen, some of the guys know I'm a writer, some not. I've just finished my latest book called Mothers and Their Men, an introspective look at mothers rearing their sons. And I just warn you, there's nothing on the market like it. Everybody tries to tell people how to rear their children, but we talk about mothers rearing their sons. We've been very blessed to do surveys, etc., and it's written from a mother's point of view. So you want to go out and get that book to be a stocking stuffer, and you'll find other books out there as well. As you can see in the background, Dying on My Feet, My Journey Times Two. I'm a 28-year survivor of acute promyelocytic leukemia, of which I was told I would not survive
Praise
to
the
see
Lord.
another birthday. And it's been 28 years.
Yeah.
I'm also a poet. I've been compared to both Maya Angelou and to Langston, and I'm very
Oh,
happy
Hey.
with that. So I'm in great company with Overton Nation, and Chantel keeps me on my toes. So we just
I
we
know
just
she
want
do.
so we just want to invite you
I
guys.
do have one more thing I want to say and acknowledge to my family.
Okay.
And again, this is why history and us getting together like this, even conversations like this, is so important. Our family have went through several deaths in the last week.
And condolences.
Um, and one of them is my great aunt. She was the last in on our direct descendant line that worked at Anthony's factory, which is now a historical building. So, and my family knows the story. It's a very funny story, hilarious story. But her and our cousin that passed before her, they were true warriors for this family. So they actually had our service today. I was very hurt that I wasn't able to attend, but we have representation there for the full family. So I want to acknowledge that and to send prayers and love out to my family, because when those those links in the chain break,
Right. That's
we have to
right.
make for sure that that bond is strong enough that we don't lose that connection with each other. So that's why all of this is so important. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. We want to again offer our condolences. And as you and I spoke earlier,
Thank
you
you.
know the African proverb says, "When an elder dies, a library burns down."
Mm.
So we
Yes.
want to express our condolences,
Wow.
not only from a sentimental point of view, but also from an educator's point of view as well, because when life goes away, we know it can never be replaced.
That's
No
right.
matter so
Absolutely.
that. So hey guys, it's been great having you here. The Nobody Asked Me Guy show. You can get those books, Barnes and Noble, or better still, get them from me and it'll be autographed. You don't have to worry about sending it to me
Yes.
to get it autographed. None of that. I will autograph that book with a special touch and get it back to you. And for those of you that look for speakers for civic organizations, for churches, motivational speaking, or just speaking of hope, etc., look me up. www.dyingonmyfeet.com. www.dyingonmyfeet.com. Now, once you get
I
there,
bet.
you'll find me on LinkedIn, you'll find me on Instagram, you'll find me on Facebook. I mean, just the whole nine, guys. So we have to make this connection. We want you guys to have a great night and know that you have just been Overton Nation sized. And we will be back.
Okay.
Have a blessed and great night.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.